Okay, so we are almost ready here, and I'm just kind of setting up my screen. And I see that somebody has already added in a question right now, so I assume our microphones and cameras are off. Yes, so Christine, yeah, so we are almost ready here, and I'm kind of setting up my screen. Okay, this is my first experiment with using Zoom webinar version, and then also broadcasting it live on YouTube. And so I don't know if you could hear it, but I could just hear myself talking right there. Not really looking to hear myself talk right now, but I feel like I'm going to be doing that a lot. So to answer a couple of, one second here, apologies. Okay, so the way this is going to work today, so this is a Zoom webinar. It's a little bit different than the regular Zoom calls of where you can kind of see everybody else, but in a Zoom webinar, all of the guests, who are you, my wonderful audience, no video or audio is available, so nobody can hear you, nobody can see you. I believe that the Q&A is recorded, so we can do Q&A and polling through here as well. And then there's a way to like add in panelists that I think we'll probably do for a future one, but not for today's. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and just put them into the Q&A feature that's built into Zoom for the webinar. Everybody that does ask a question, if you would like it, then I will mail you a Mathshare sticker. Not the whole water bottle, this is my water bottle. Learn from a student, put duct tape rolled around the bottom of your water bottle, and then you've got a roll of duct tape wherever you need one. So it's pretty awesome there. But so the sticker says, every student learns in their own way and different types of accessibility things. And the text to speech is going to be coming to Mathshare later on this summer. So that's a really exciting update that we're going to have. All right. So the purpose of this webinar is to go over just sort of a general overview of what is Mathshare, but then also share some of the big updates that we just released on Saturday. So that's gonna be our May update. We're switching to kind of like a monthly release schedule, more or less. It's about 3 weeks, so it'll get a little bit messy here and there, but roughly about every month, we're gonna have a new release of Mathshare, and coinciding with that, we're going to have a number of video that will kind of go over the different changes that have been made. And in future ones, we're going to be releasing the videos and emailing out release information about a week or a couple days before that release goes out. And so that's gonna be really helpful for you as educators because, right, like as you're working with students, especially say if like your student is using a screen reader, it's gonna be pretty helpful to be able to like inform your student of like, hey, here are some things that are going to be changing, or just so that you can know as a teacher of what are some things that your students are gonna need to know or be aware of if some of these different feature changes or updates are going to really have a bigger impact on some of your students. But so the main things here are that we launched the sharing library, which I'm very excited about. And there's a problem set in there already. We'll be adding more as we go along. Being able to archive your problem sets, being able to add steps to problems for students, which is a fantastic thing. And it also allows your students to create their own problem sets right away, and bug fixes and minor interface changes. We received a lot of great emails from educators over the last couple of months with different tweaks and changes or kind of like observations of like problems that they found. So that's been very helpful. All right, yeah. And again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and add them into the Q&A feature within Mathshare. I didn't introduce myself. So I'm Matt. My name is Matt Nupin. You can find me on Twitter at Matt Nupin. And I taught science high school science for about 12 years, always in kind of the alternative school. So a lot of my students were traditional school didn't work for them for a wide range of reasons. And they had kind of missed a lot of school as well. And so there was a lot of my students had undiagnosed learning disabilities, or they were just simply very far behind in school. So they were a senior in high school, but academically, like knowledge-based, like skills-based, they, some of them would be like in middle school. And so it was very much the same thing of like, my students need a lot of extra supports. I also have, so I've got 2 kids, and my oldest child has cerebral palsy. She's nonverbal, has a wheelchair for getting around. The most like charismatic, outgoing kid you'll probably ever meet, because that's what every parent says about their kids. But so accessibility has a really personal thing for me, and it's something that I kind of lived in for a lot of years. Hey, Thomas. And it's exciting to see a lot of my educator friends on there. So, all right. So to get started, what Mathshare is it's a tool that helps students organize and share their math work. So it's not about teaching the students how to do the math or for like lots of like, you know, programmatically created problem sets or something like that. It's about giving your students problem set that they can work through and explain their work step by step. And so not only for you as the educator to understand it, but for the students also to go through that step-by-step process of thinking through how are they going to solve the problem. So it's mathshare.benetech.org. And from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on sign in. So we have two options for signing in. Google and Microsoft, you can also continue without signing in, but please go ahead and sign in. It's always best to have your students sign in as well. Make sure you go through the privacy policy information as well before you have your students do that. But by doing that, it allows all of the work to be saved into your user dashboard, which is going to be extremely helpful for coming back to your work later on. I'm going to also share with you how you can do that without signing in. So I'm signing in with Google right now. So I'm selecting my Google account that I want to sign in. And I'm now here on my dashboard. So I'm going to go through just a demo first of what Mathshare does and then some of the updates for it. So to begin with, I'm going to show you kind of an example one that's already made. So up at the very top row of Mathshare, we have a help menu button. So I'm going to select that and then the tutorial option. This will walk you through kind of step by step of how it is that Mathshare is laid out. I'm going to close this though, because I'm here to walk you through it. I will be your tour guide today. So Mathshare, this is really kind of like the core piece of what Mathshare is this problem solution or the math editor here. So the prompt is up at the top. So it's giving students the instructions here of solve for x, 7x minus 13 is equal to 1. So that's what the teacher will put in, or students can also use Mathshare independently to work through their own problems. So for whatever reason, if writing out on paper is something that is going to be very difficult or impossible for your students to do, Mathshare is a really good solution and something that we've been hearing a lot of students using it, that if they struggle with handwriting, their handwriting skills are very difficult, they're very poor, that then using Mathshare allows them to get through their math much more quickly and they feel much more confident and successful and they can turn in their work. And so then below that is the My Steps. And so this is where now each step of the math problem is broken down. So step 1 is automatically done where it has then the starting equation and then the instructions. And step 2, the student has already gone through and started solving. So for this, what they added in the note on the right of add 13 to both sides and then calculate. And so you can see here of what they did is they had 7x minus 13, and then they added 13 to both sides, and then they used the crossout tool feature within Mathshare, and Mathshare then automatically cleans that up, and I'll show you guys how that works. And so the student goes through step by step until they get to the final answer of x is equal to 2. Below that step by step is the My Work area, and this is the math editor where students can then, on the left column, put in their work on the math equation, and then on the right side is then being able to explain their work. And so they can type in their explanations there or use the built-in dictation tool, the speech to text, so that then they can record themselves saying that. And below that is the math editor. So everything within the math editor or the equation area can be done with keyboard combinations, or they can also select the different buttons that are within here. And of course, it all works then with tabs, so students can go through and tab through them. And if you hover the mouse over any of them, it also then shows you what that keyboard combination is for that. So this is kind of like the overview of what Mathshare is. It allows students to go step by step to solve the problem. Now, let's go through what some of these big exciting changes are. So I'm back now on the Mathshare dashboard. Because I'm signed in, you can see all my problem sets here. The first thing I'm going to show you is the Explore Problem Set Library. So I'm going to select that link, open that up. This will take you to a Google spreadsheet. So we're using Google Forms and a spreadsheet for right now as a way of kind of testing out this idea for people just to start sharing their problem sets now. And so if you select the share your problem set link at the top of the spreadsheet, that will take you to the form where you can then share your problem set with it. Within that then is when the person shared it, a link to the problem set, a description of it, the person's name of whoever shared it, And then we also added in the columns of grade level, math subject, and standards as optional fields that educators can add in. So this is gonna be a really exciting thing of where you can then share your problem sets with other people. Well, let's say I want to use one of these problem sets. So I'm going to select this first one and open that up. This one looks pretty fantastic. Oh, we'll come back to this here because this is the review link. So I'm going to share something later on about that. All right, so I'm back now on the Mathshare dashboard. The next thing I'm going to show you is the ability to archive sets. So as you can see, I already have like a fairly healthy list of problem sets within here. A lot from my demos, but right, you can imagine that as a math teacher, you're going to be creating a lot of problem sets and you won't always need all of them. Or as a student, you're going to have a lot of problem sets. And as you complete them, you don't want to seeing all of them in a giant list can become very overwhelming. So what you can do is with each of these problems under your recent sets section, you can then select the more options and then archive. And so that will essentially, we have a little trash can icon next to archive. And that essentially then just moves that to the archive for you. So now if I select archive sets button, that will take us to the archive where we can see all of our problem sets there. If you ever want to bring one of those back. So let's say you're working with, right, we're only going to be using this problem set once per year. You could then create those problem sets and then archive them and be like, all right, new year, now I'm going to be bringing back these problem sets that we're going to be using actively. And then I can restore that problem set by selecting the more options. And I'm going to select go back. And we will head back over here. And then also at any point, you can also duplicate the problem sets. Duplicating is extremely helpful of one, let's say if you had like one version, you want to create multiple versions of the same problem set for different students, you can do that. It's also helpful of where maybe you create one that's going to be like your answer key and then one that you're going to be sharing out with your students. That will also be a really helpful thing. So I see we have a couple of different questions. So I'm going to pause right here and look through these. Let's see here. Is it possible to enlarge the equation digits? Is it switch accessible? And is Benetech willing to share the data privacy agreement with schools and districts? Yes. All right. So I'm going to get to these questions. I think what we'll do is I'm going to create a problem set and then I'll kind of like explain some of the questions about the interface. So with this release, students can also create their own problem sets. And it's very much the same process as with teachers. We have upcoming webinars that are focused specifically on how students can do it. Now, the webinar is not really aimed necessarily as like for students to watch it. They could definitely watch the webinar and be very helpful. But basically, we're going to be going over how it is that students would use Mathshare, say like if they had a paper worksheet or a digital one that they wanted to use on Mathshare then independently. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select create a problem set from the dashboard. From here, now students won't see this interface. This allows you to customize what things are going to be on there. We purposely took this off so students don't see that. I'm going to select to the next one. And now I'm going to add in a new problem. So I'm just going to say 3x plus 10 is equal to 6. And I'm going to then say solve for x. And we'll add that problem. And I'm going to now select done. I'm finished with that. And so now that I've added this problem on there, before I share it with my students, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this problem by selecting the problem itself. And now I can go through and start adding in some additional steps. So this is one of the other big changes that we did of where you can then pre-populate the steps within the problem set itself. So one example in which we can do this is, let's say for this one, I want to go through and just simply show my students how to solve the problem. I could do that step by step and have an example one. For this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mistake and then tell my students that I want them to go through and then kind of like identify where the error was. So in this one, then I could say of like, okay, we're going to now do like minus 10. And then for this one, I'm going to purposely not subtract 10. And then go through and then say like, I'm going to somehow like add this now. Right, so you can go through step by step and then at the end say like, all right, now identify what the problem was. Now what's also great is that because you're able to add in these steps, your students can do this same thing of now instead of like having to create a problem set and share it with themselves or something like that, they can go through and start making their own problem sets the same way that a teacher would, and go through all their work, complete all their steps. And when they're done, we're going to select finish. Then they can go back to here and now share a link from their problem set with you, their teacher. So they can either select share permanent link. Now what this does is this just simply gives you a URL to your problem set. So I can now select that, copy it, and in a new tab, I will open up that link. And this is what then the students would be sharing with you. So you as the teacher could then open that up. Did I save that one? We'll come back to that. Didn't work out. Move that. There we go. Or they can share it through Google Classroom. Now, the Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams sharing modals, to kind of get some of, not really your question, Thomas, but with the Classroom and Teams integration, we're doing that of where it opens up in a new window. So we're not directly accessing your Google Classroom or Teams. So we're not kind of like that data privacy level. We're not accessing any Google Classroom information directly at all. It's all just simply opening up in a new window that Google controls. But so students are able to go through and create their own problem sets and solve them on here. All right, so I'm going to get to a couple of the questions here that people had. And so one of them was about enlarging the equation digits. This summer, we have a really big update that's going to be coming out that's going to be making Mathshare mobile compatible. Right now, if you decrease the size quite a bit, you can see if some things work, other things like the math editor do not. So for right now, you could increase the size, the text size. So if I did on my MacBook here, if I press Command and plus, and I increase the size on the screen, the text size, you'll notice that the buttons do increase in size. However, because Mathshare, there's limits on the size of smaller screens, then we run into some issues. Those issues are going to be resolved this summer. We're going to be coming out with a tabbed-based approach for the different math tools within there. You can then customize which math buttons you would have in the different palettes. That will be coming out this summer, though. But so in one way, yes, and you can increase the equation digits by just increasing the overall text size, but there's a certain limit that you'll eventually get to. Karen, for switch access, that is something that we're going, yes and no. So you can tab through everything already. We have not been working with switch users directly for this. We do have that planned out for this fall is when we're going to be focusing on switch access specifically, because we have some other interface changes that we're going to be making for screen reader users, and just kind of for overall kind of like making the interface a little bit more clean and less overwhelming for some users. So some switch users may be able to use Mathshare as is right now, but I would not say it is accessible for all switch users. But we are looking for users that would be interested in helping us test that. We have a running document of people that are interested in helping us with different types of accessibility issues. So if you are interested in that, sign up for Mathshare. So either you can email me, or once you're signed into Mathshare, select this little message box that's in the lower right corner. So it's an intercom. So it's called Intercom Messenger. It's in the lower right corner of the screen. And if you select that, then you'll see that the box that opens up, you can then send us a message directly through here, and you can also schedule a call with us. And so if you just simply say, hey, I would like to help you with testing out switch access, then we'll add you to that list, and we'll let you know when we get to these different features. But really would also be really helpful is if you have any students that you think would be interested in helping us test and give us some feedback on what we currently have, that would be fantastic too, of what areas they would really like to see improvements for when it comes to various different accessibility features. All right, so with the data privacy agreement, Benetech as a whole, we're moving to, because we have a number of different education products at Benetech, so like Bookshare being the biggest one. We're moving to a single data privacy agreement policy for all of that, so that if the district accepts the Bookshare one, Mathshare is going to be in alignment with that. Information about that is going to be coming out very soon. So I'll email you, Thomas, and we can kind of follow up about that. But that's going to be coming out sometime in May, I believe. They have it drafted. I believe they're kind of going through some of the different things to make sure everything is good. And then they're going to be launching that. But that'll be one of the big changes that will make it nice, because then most districts do probably have Bookshare's data privacy agreement. They've agreed to that or reviewed that. And so Mathshare will fit with under that. Do we have video tutorials for teachers and for students in learning how to navigate this program? So we do. On our Mathshare YouTube channel, we've got a number of different videos that are on there. You can watch my browsing history too. Jimmy Fallon, that's pretty good. All right, so then I'm going to go to our videos here. Here we go. Yeah, so we've got a number of different videos that are on here that are aimed at teachers. I am working on some for students, specifically for that math editor buttons. We've been getting some feedback from teachers that that's where students kind of get struggled the most, is what these different buttons do or how they can use the keyboard. And so I'm going to be working on a video this week for students. We also are going to be releasing a printable version of kind of like a tutorial for students. We do have a printed handout for teachers on how to use Mathshare. And a lot of our videos that we have on here, we have ones that are very specific about different things, like using the stack below function within Mathshare, all available on there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And yeah, because those were kind of like all the features I want to go over for this. So now we're going to be kind of talking about like your different questions that we have. All right. So Connie asked, how do I get Mathshare? So Mathshare, if you go to mathshare.benetech.org, and I'll put a link to this in the description, but it's mathshare.benetech.org. It is completely free. Mathshare will always be free. We're not going to be changing it to a paid model later on. What we're doing is we're working with a number of different EdTech partners to then have Mathshare's editor integrated into their software, so that if students ever have a need to be able to enter in math, Mathshare is going to be the tool that they can use for entering in that math, because our focus is on that step-by-step process and the accessibility. So it's not a download, so it's a web app. We don't have a downloadable version for it. We are working on a mobile device compatible version, but that won't be a downloaded app. It's all through the browser right now. And then you can just begin using it on there. And whether you sign in with Google or Microsoft, or if you continue without signing in. Now, if you don't continue with signing in, you'll have to make sure that you copy a link to your problem set so you can come back to it later for working. Does it work with read and write? I haven't tested it with read and write for the, and I'm guessing you're saying like for the text-to-speech functionality. I haven't tested that. We've tried it out with some different text-to-speech tools or browser extensions, and it's a real mix of how well they work. In general, though, I'm going to say no. And the reason is because with the reading out math can be difficult. We have a very specific built-in way for the math to be read aloud, and it highlights it as it's reading along, kind of like what read and write does. And later on this summer, we're going to be releasing the text-to-speech. And so with each step, as students are going along, they can select a button and then have it read aloud to them. And it'll be highlighting the different parts of the math equation as it reads it, as well as the explanation for the students. So we're going to be building in that text-to-speech. Just because we discovered early on that all of the different text-to-speech extensions, especially on Chrome, they work in such different ways for selecting the text and having it read aloud. Was extremely difficult to have it work universally.